From Killers of the Flower Moon
to Five Nights at Freddy's,
this is the Film Angles Review of the Year 2023. I'm Alex.
and I'm Kris.
Welcome to the episode.
I know, a brand new year of the Film Angle, actually. I'm really, really excited. This is, it's a year-end review, but specifically, it's a list. We're doing our top 10 of the
We
year.
love a list. We love a list. And we hate a list.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, I enjoy watching or reading other people's lists, but it's more entertaining to me in this sort of competitive environment.
Absolutely. And it's weird as well, because it's kind of like, even within making the list, our top 10s of the year, those films still kind of changed around a little bit in the days leading up to this. Who knows what they would do after this?
Look, I think it's fair to say it was a pretty good year for films in general. I mean, a couple were like standout, like I would say 5 out of 5, top tier for the ages movies, but the rest of them were just like, there was like a good 60 solid great movies. It was really hard to top 10 wasn't too difficult, but as soon as I left that top 10, get into 20 to 30, all those movies could have been anywhere across the board.
Yeah.
And I'll probably feel differently next week. Probably the same for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth saying that we do go off the US release dates of these films. So, I mean, if we went off the UK release dates, then, who knows? Maybe Tar would have made your top 10.
Yeah. See, that's the thing that really sucks, though, because then what do you do for next year's list? Those movies those January releases in the UK, and then you end up falling in love with them.
Yeah.
Where do they go? Where does that fall into the list? It's one of the most frustrating things about doing this thing. But
I wish all these things came out at the same time. But yeah, we're a couple of days away from Poor Things coming out.
Yes,
we're like a week or so away from The Holdovers.
Yes.
So these are films that potentially could have made it in. But yeah, no, this is our top 10 right now of these kind of 2023 films and getting into them. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's been I think it's been a pretty decent year for sure.
I'm pretty excited because I have no idea. I generally know through conversations on the podcast and in person what movies you're really engaged with this year, but I think I'm going to be quite surprised by what comes up in your top 10. I don't think last year ours was pretty similar. We had Top Gun Maverick in there. We had Everything Everywhere All at Once. Everybody kind of had those same sort of answers for no matter what podcast or YouTube channel you followed or listened to. So I think this is kind of a year where it's really it tells a lot about the person.
Yes.
So
I'm
really
interested. Yeah. I'm interested to see, because I know we've spoken previous weeks about potential films that might creep up. But we don't actually know each other's top 10 right now. So yeah, be interesting to discover that with you. Before we jump into the top 10, Kris, usually there's a couple of films which you were like, do they go in? Do they not? And I thought maybe it would be worth doing a couple of honorable mentions, just a couple of films that just missed out on your top 10. Just so, I don't know. People do that. So honorable mentions.
Okay, well, if we're talking honorable mentions, the first sort of films that come to mind, maybe Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. That's a movie I saw, quite early into last year. It was kind of like a movie I didn't know was coming out till the week I went to see it. It was just sort of we'll go see it. It's getting good reviews, and I kind of really fell in love with it. It's such a sweet little story. Rachel McAdams probably gives one of the better performances of last year for me. I mean, she always just knocks it out the park. So, that was a really sweet movie that really kind of caught me by surprise and was a little bit of a heart warmer. I also think of May December, one we recently went to see. Again, I think a movie that I really loved ultimately, but struggled with some elements. But I'm pretty sure the next time I go to revisit that movie, I won't feel so strongly about those things that didn't work, and I'll probably find that the movie works for me even more.
Yes, I feel the same way. There's been a lot more kind of discourse around it recently. I think it hit Netflix in the States.
Yes.
So a lot more eyes have been on it, and I feel the same way. I from listening to interviews with the writer, I think I listened to an interview with Todd Haynes as well. and then just kind of reading some of the people's kind of discussions about it, I think I'm more favorable on that film, and I was pretty favorable on it, but like even
Mhm.
more favorable when I think back on it.
Yeah, I think it kind of reminded me of the last year. I think it made it into my top 10, but Decision to Leave was sort of like that, where I knew I was enjoying what I was watching, but there was about 20% of it I couldn't really like get my finger on the pulse. And
Mm.
but after hearing the discourse and everything, like people's how people responded to that film, I thought, oh yeah, I mean, that does kind of work when you mention it like that. So I'm looking forward to revisiting that one too. So it's one of those again.
Yes, it probably didn't help
Not
that
that
you
I'm
came out the
influenced by.
cinema with me and Lauren, who were a
Yes.
little bit more negative on
The-
that film than you were.
I think yeah, I'm not influenced by other people's opinions like online too. What I'm saying is that it sparks my interest in
Yes,
revisiting the material. So yeah, I think it's up there, and I think it's Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman. I mean, really great performances there. Natalie Portman especially, giving one of her best, I think. So yeah, they just missed out for me.
yes, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, I had a few that just missed out, but the two I'll mention are Rye Lane, which was a lovely little
Yeah,
British um, rom com, I guess.
yeah.
Kind of followed in the vein of your kind of Before Sunrises, where it was a kind of lot of
Mm.
two people walking and talking, but really funny, really sweet, and I really wanted to put it in my top 10, but a couple of things just pushed it out. But
Such a
I just,
shame that was just dumped onto Disney Plus. Really, I mean, I think
yeah,
a lot of people would have loved that, but yeah,
it was
yeah.
so nice, and for a film set in England, it was quite colourful as well, which you
Oh,
don't really
very
get. You should
vibrant.
just
Yeah.
get kind of drab, grey streets most of the time. So I don't know, just that one really, I really liked that one, and was just missed out on the top 10. And then the other one is, and I feel bad again with this one, though I feel like most people might disagree with me. No Hard Feelings, the Jennifer Lawrence comedy.
I had a lot of
I
fun
feel
in
like
that movie. Yeah,
a lot of
we both
comedies
like
get a
that.
bad rep, don't they? You know, like they don't
Mm.
get the awards buzz or anything like that. But I mean, I had so much fun and I laughed a lot at this film. And the more I think about it, I was like, yeah, I had such a good fun time. And sometimes you dismiss these things a little bit just because
Mhm.
it's like a light comedy, but
We really do
it's really
neglect
fun.
comedy in general. I mean, I think it's so much harder to make a successful comedy than a drama. There's just so much more like the audience comes in with such a certain expectation when you go you're there to laugh. And if
Mm,
the movie like doesn't get you on the first couple of jokes or on its vibe, then it's lost you for the rest of the thing. And I thought No Hard Feelings was brilliant. I think it yeah, it lends itself to Jennifer Lawrence and her kind of strongest attribute, which has been untapped so far.
mm,
Yeah, that movie is so much fun and very surprisingly sweet and comes
yes.
around in a way that you don't expect it to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, those are
Uh,
good picks.
Yep. So yeah, those are my kind of honorable mentions. The films that just missed out. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, shall we go and rank art, Chris?
Let's rank art. Yes, like
Shall
we
we
said
pit
last.
art against each other?
I mean, lists are silly, but it's the world we live in. I enjoy watching lists and
Yeah,
tier lists and
they
all
are
sorts
kind of
of.
fun to make as well.
They are fun. They
Yeah.
are kind of fun, and but they take it with a pinch of salt. There's a lot of 2023 releases that I don't know about you, but I still have not caught up with that. I know looking from the outset, I know I love these movies. So who knows? Even they could have made it into here. So if you hear something or didn't hear something that we didn't watch, do not be offended. It's not that we didn't like the film. It's probably haven't got round to it yet.
You never know, we might get a chance to talk about it and rank it again when it comes to the Oscars, because I quite enjoyed ranking the Oscars last year.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And the Golden Globes came out today, but we won't talk about that because that's a completely different episode.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And are they even really a thing?
Yeah, yeah. I take issue with just like best actor for musical or comedy. I mean, that's always just such a weird
Yeah.
title for a role. But whatever.
Plus
Should we
the
go?
nominees are like preconceived by just somebody, right? It's not like a collective of people, like the Academy. And I know there's still issues
Yet
with
it
how
still
the
sets
Academy
the
do
tone
things, but
for
the
the.
Golden Globes is very much like they're like these films would be good here. They would bring in the ratings. But yeah, I don't know. Golden Globes has had a bad rap for a while, and I think It's
Yeah, no
probably
one takes that thing serious. I mean, you
for the
should not
right
take any
reasons.
award ceremony
No,
seriously. I think
no.
most people are smart enough and savvy enough that they don't. But it's fun anyway. And the Oscars is just like some crazy pomp where like excess just goes to another level and things happen. Like people slap each other. But I know I'm referencing a 2-year-old joke there, so it should probably be
Yeah. Well, I
fun.
mean, we'll voice our disgust like we do every year, I'm sure, when the Oscars come around in February, March. Chris, do you wanna start and give us your number 10 pick of the best films of the year?
I'm going to come at you very quickly. We discussed it kind of intermittently in the last year. You caught up with it later than me. I'm starting with my number 10 is Theater Camp. I really enjoy this movie. It's kind of a movie that's sort of made for people like me. I thought it very sweet and endearing. It feels like a movie that should have been just meh. Like I expected going to the cinema and then seeing something that would have been like chuckle inducing at moments, but ultimately like a bit flat. It's far from that. It's really, really sweet. It has some knockout performances. I can get the song "Better Now" by Post
Yeah.
Malone out of my head for like a good couple of
I
weeks.
still have it in my head.
It is so funny. It features great performances by Ben Platt, Molly Gordon, who's also part of the creative team and directing team. Um, and also like a standout performance from Noah Galvin. He plays Glenn, who's sort of the that cliche in like theater or musicals where it's like the least suspecting person comes out at the end and gives a show-stopping performance. Um, that's never felt more organic and more well earned than a film like this, and he knocks it out the park. So yeah, that left a real long lasting impression on me, and I'm glad I have it on Disney Plus so I can watch it whenever I want to.
It's funny you say that, Chris. I'll go straight into my number 10 whilst we're speaking about it. So we're already very similar. My number 10 is actually also Theatre Camp. Yeah, if I had a word to describe this film, it would probably be surprised. Because, like you said, even though you reviewed it more in depth on the podcast previously, I think I kind of forgot most of what you said. I knew you were positive on it, but I was still went into it quite surprised that it
Yeah.
was a mockumentary style film. I
Yes.
didn't for some reason I must have forgot you saying that. I was also just surprised how funny it was. And I was surprised that it was co-directed by Molly Gordon along with Nick Lieberman. I think Molly Gordon's pretty much a rising star right now,
Mm.
and that took me by surprise. And to see how well this film is kind of made is just great. That's great to see. But yeah, mostly I was just surprised by how much I really enjoyed it because I mean, I wouldn't say I was a theatre kid. You were much more of a theatre kid than I was. I did do drama, and I loved doing that at school.
Yes.
But it was never the actual kind of like I like to go into the theatre, but I know you love musicals and all that kind of stuff, and I don't have the
I'm
same
doing jazz
affinity.
hands right now.
Yeah, I know, I know. I still couldn't get you to sing "Memories" the other
Well, that's
week.
a sign of a typical theatre. I want to do my best, and I will not
You
do
will
it
not
if
do anything less.
if I risk my image.
Yeah, but no, it did bring up some of those memories of kind of some of the acting stuff I did
Mm,
after school in the past, and yeah, it's really funny.
I
It's
think
really
also
funny. I just
it,
and like you, I do actually really look forward to kind of revisiting at some point. It was just a really cozy film to put on one evening, and I think
yeah.
I had no expectation. I think it was pretty short. It was like 90 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, I've watched this one. Chris said it was good, and just came out of it really surprised.
You're right. It's very nostalgic, even though it's like we never grew up in that sort of environment. But it's kind of reminds me that if I ever have kids, I would love my kids to kind of go into something like that. It's something that's so like experiential, and the camaraderie that you learn so much when you do something like that. You open yourself so much as a kid or a young adult when you throw yourself into something like that. You learn so much about yourself. So it reminded me a lot about that, and yeah, it brought back some memories as well as just kind of being this new story that we both really enjoyed and loved the performances, and I think all the jokes pretty much land. I mean,
Yeah,
I remember our whole cinema was kind of chuckling through this whole movie,
Mm.
and which is really rare. I don't really hear people laugh in the cinema that much. People are usually, especially in the UK, people are really on their guard. So yeah, I love this movie, just like yourself. So if you can keep making all of your rankings, Alex, the same as mine, then we'll go for this episode very quickly.
I know, I know. It's going to flow really nicely if we're exactly the same. However, I think we're going to differ straight away on number nine. So you go for your number nine. I've got a feeling this might not have made your list, but ooh, you never know.
Okay. Well, I was surprised that after kind of this is a real movie that stewed in my head throughout the year. I liked it when I first watched it, but now I think I love it. And it is Beau is Afraid. The Ari
Oh.
Aster sort of psycho melodrama horror film that he conjured up with. This is his sort of blank check movie. It is an epic odyssey. We follow Joaquin Phoenix as the titular Beau as he goes on an odyssey to return to his mother. It's as simple as that, premise wise, but it's not so simple, the journey. I think this is just so singular in its creative vision. It's so dreamlike in a way that we haven't really seen in film. It's very nightmarish, but it kind of stresses itself to almost like it's gonna fall apart, this movie, at any moment. I don't know where this is going, but the third act really kind of has a lot of catharsis and a lot of poignancy that whenever it kind of wrapped up in the closing moments, I completely got what this movie was going for. And it justified its 3 hour run time for me, actually. I think it's a movie that I find quite profound, even though it's quite silly. It's quite funny that, I mean, it's a movie that's got a penis monster in an attic in one scene. Yeah, I could still feel very moved by this film. It's very, that's pretty impressive by
Yeah.
itself.
To be fair, I am still very fond of Beau is Afraid, although it does not make my top 10. Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of shoot on it quite a bit. I think I am definitely still positive on it. I'm not sure I agree that it warrants its running time, maybe.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, it's a weird one.
It's
I'm glad it exists. I'll go as far as to say that.
Well, there. I think it needs its runtime because there's another film that came out that didn't make my top 10. I did like it, and it was Dream Scenario, which was coincidentally a project that Ari Aster was originally supposed to direct and then dropped
Oh,
out of it,
I didn't
and
know
then
that.
ended up co-producing it. So it feels like Beau's Afraid has that breathing room to sort of expand these ideas and have that time to sort of ponder over what the movie is about,
Mm.
and it's such an experience more than a film that if it was 2 hours maybe, or an hour and a half, it might have felt a bit minor, like Dream Scenario felt to me. So
I'm waiting on Dream Scenario
mm,
to
I'm in
drop
the
on
minority. I think people
streaming.
really like it. So
I'm still excited to watch that film, but yes, that's interesting that you kind of see some parallels there between the two.
oh, there's major parallels, but yeah, I'll be interested. We'll catch up on that conversation later on in the year.
Is there a penis monster?
There's not a penis monster, but there's equally awkward things going on here. There's
Fair
equally
enough.
weird things.
Fair enough. Fair
Alex,
enough.
what's your number 9?
Okay, my number nine is Bottoms, which was the
Mm,
kind of much anticipated second feature film from Emma Seligman. And it follows two girls who start a fight club in an attempt to lose their virginities to cheerleaders. Is pretty much a left turn compared to her previous film Shiva Baby. But essentially, what she's done is make a high school comedy in the vein of like Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Clueless,
yeah,
but for
Heather's.
Heather's, but
Yeah.
for that kind of Gen Z generation potentially.
Hmm.
And although I'm not of that generation, I still think this is peak cinema, no cap, man. uh, sorry, I'm so
Oh man,
sorry.
I'll let
Uh,
you do that. I'll let you sink yourself.
yes, I'm so sorry.
You're on your own.
It's though, to be fair, in the vein of the film, it's a really silly film, and it's really stupid, but it's also lovely and just brilliantly funny all at the same time. And I think I spoke about this on the episode we discussed it. It definitely helps that kind of the scenario I was in when I watched it was just a brilliant scenario where I
Mm.
don't think it had a UK release date. I was off seeing my brother in Canada, so I was just like, we got to watch this film because it's the only chance we're going to get to see it at this point. And then watched it with my brother and his partner, and we all kind of love the film. And they're not really massive film buffs like me, so they didn't know much about the film going in. So
Yeah.
I think the fact that we all had this like lovely experience watching it definitely heightened the experience. But yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for films like Fast Times at Ridgemont High and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
this really worked for me. It was silly but not too silly, and all that kind of stuff. I just yeah, I had a lot of fun. Yeah, I hope I enjoy it as much when I revisit it at some point. But yeah, right now, number 9.
This falls into the category again for me that I think I'll like it even more the second time. I did like this movie. It didn't make my top 10. Um, but I think there was so much expectation going into this thing. I think people were calling it like the comedy of the decade and everything. So
Mm,
you know, it's that pressure. We're talking about audience expectation, like we said about no hard feelings. So I went in. You know, this is so dependent on your mind frame. I thought this movie was really cool, really quippy, lightning fast. Um, some really really great jokes throughout, and I think Rachel Sennett um
yeah.
is incredible, and Io Edibiri is
Yes.
incredible too. She's also in theater camp,
Yeah,
and
I know a double hitter there.
yeah,
It's been her year.
yeah, she probably is the standout performance in Bottoms. I struggled a little bit just kind of getting on its wavelength a little bit. I think like tonally kind of a world building thing for me. Like, oh, are we in reality? Are we in some sort of like hybrid fantasy thing? And I think that's why like I think about Heather's, because I think that's where ultimately it goes. It turns into this sort of like this sort of dreamy sort of what if scenario.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
I think
leaves little consequence in its
yes.
wake.
Exactly, and it's a lot smaller in scope than I expected it to be. So that's a lot of fault on my part. I think I'm looking forward to catching up with it, and I think knowing what it is, I will probably feel similar to you next time.
Yeah. Very excited to see what Emma Seligman does next. I assume this means she could go left, right, wherever she wants. She doesn't seem like the kind of person who wants to make the same film
Yeah,
twice, and
Shiva
I
Baby is completely
respect her.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully respect her for being like, these are the films I used to love watching. I want to make one of these because they don't make them like this anymore.
hmm
So good for her.
Um, my number 8 film, Alex, is actually quite a recent one. We've both seen this now. I don't know if it'll make your top 10 list, but it's Godzilla minus one, and that movie did come out of nowhere for me. It was like I went on the internet one day and suddenly everybody was saying that Godzilla minus one's the best Godzilla movie ever made. I'm like, you talking about the new Godzilla versus Kong movie? That thing's out yet? Um, no, they were not talking about that movie. This is way more to the original Godzilla roots. It's kind of like it's a love letter to the original 1954 movie, but also it's a remake, really. Um, it kind of deals with all the original themes about post Second World War, sort of paranoia, especially from Japan's perspective, especially dealing with the aftermath of the Hiroshima bombings. Um, so it's got all this on its mind. It's made on a minuscule budget. I mean, people have been saying it was $15 million to make this movie. And then somebody asked the director, and he said, "Oh, I wish it was that much money."
Yeah.
So it's a real testament to see like how you can really like stretch a budget if you've got the creativity and the ingenuity to kind of get around problems. That's how we get movies like Jaws or like Halloween. Like these classic movies. Um, you can make great art, and it's incredible. It's super entertaining. But it's not at the expense of poignancy and loftiness and hitting all the themes directly. But you're also getting a badass, scary Godzilla movie. It's a real surprise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely surprising. I kind of wish we had been able to fit it into a like a standard review episode, but I think it hit around the same time we were doing our Christmas episode, and I
Yeah,
would have
too late.
loved to have
Too
gone
late.
more in depth with you. Chris, it is also my number 8.
Oh, I'm loving this so far.
Yes, yes, I know. And you've kind of said all the things I was going to say about it. But it really does do what the Western films of Godzilla never get right, which is make it about the human story and make it about, well, they do it about the human story, but they don't make it good. It's not the emotional thread throughout. It just doesn't work. And it really works here. And it looks, like you said, at that horror, the horrors of war in a country and how it's been shaped by being nuked twice, and
Yeah,
how everyday civilians just trying to get some grip back on their life after the events of World War II now have to come together almost immediately to kind of stop the unstoppable force of nature, which is
Yes.
Godzilla. And it's quite harrowing in places. It's quite sad, but it's also like it's almost a perfect blockbuster, I think, because it does
Mhm.
what every big event movie should do, and that's story, heart, and spectacle in an abundance. And
Yeah.
it's got that. It's got that. It's a crowd pleaser, despite some of the more harrowing scenes. And I think it's one of the better interpretations of Godzilla we've ever had. So yeah, no, yeah, like you said, this kind of came out of nowhere as well. Kind of heard little bits and pieces, but when
Mhm.
I remember like Shin Godzilla came out a few years ago, and people saying, "Oh, that's pretty good," like, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I should watch that at some point," and never got around to it. But this one, people were like,
Same.
"You gotta watch it."
Yeah, and I think the Godzilla, like the colon -1, is like a reference to what you're talking about. Is the fact that the Japanese people were already. It's like it's such a Japanese thing. It's almost very anime. Um, we were at zero at the end of World War II. That's what the scoreboard was like for Japan, and now Godzilla here we're at -1.
Yeah.
So I love the melodrama of it, and it kind of sets the tone for the movie because the movie is very melodramatic, and it is
Oh,
it is
super.
it is over the top, especially in its human moments with men yelling at each other in rooms, and these the camaraderie makes you want to shake your fist in the air. It's like Top Gun Maverick sort of took some sherbet sticks and kind of got a little bit excited towards the end. But
Yeah.
it's really good. It's really scary. It uses some of the original music from the original
Yes.
Godzilla. So for those fans, and we actually were so excited for this movie that you and I both watched the original film,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad I did, because you can see the parallels, and I think you get a lot more out of this thing if you can still see it in the cinema, because this thing is actually being really popular. I think it's now
Mm.
the highest grossing live action Japanese film to ever release in the UK. So it's grossed the most out of that in that sort of aspect. So yeah, I think people are really loving this. I haven't heard one bad thing about it.
No, and it's quite funny. Along with this and The Boy and the Heron, it was almost like all of a sudden Japanese cinema kind of like took the whole year by storm. Um, and I think it was like a top two in the box office for a long time. And it was, obviously, I'm sure if you were Japanese, you'd be seeing the landscape of cinema in a different way completely
Mhm.
anyway. But from a Western perspective, it was good to
It
see.
was humbling.
Yeah, it was good to see Japan come out in full force with like, yo, we can do this as well,
Exactly.
which we
And
kind of always knew, but just good to see it at the top of kind of pop culture
at the
within that last month or so.
in the meantime, we've got a trailer for the new Godzilla versus Kong movie, where Godzilla and Kong run with each other at the end of it, like they're buddy, like a Beverly Hills Cop, like five or something. It's hilarious, for
Don't
the wrong
shit on that
reasons.
film yet, man. Godzilla's pink, all right, it's cool.
I will reserve judgment, but track record is not very high at the minute. So yeah, so thank God for Godzilla -1. Definitely deserves to be on the list. Okay, so yeah, you had it on your list too, so
Yeah,
it's back to
make it
me
easy
again.
for me, Chris.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to make it easy for you now. I think you're going to sneer at me. You do sneer at me every time I mention this film. It is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One. Um, it might just be called Dead Reckoning now, because we were just discussing a moment ago that that movie, the sequel, might not be called Part Two. Anyway,
Yes.
we'll know more next year. Yeah,
Will
I
it
think
you?
The Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise duo as a filmatic presence, they are a powerhouse. I think they're just on to a good thing a couple of years ago with Fallout, and have just ran with it. Um, well, actually, Rogue Nation was the first one, wasn't it? So they just kind of ran with that formula, upping the ante each time. I do think Fallout is a better movie than this, because I think Fallout
Oh
is
yeah.
kind of. I don't think you'll ever. It's the pinnacle of. It's kind of up there with the pinnacle of
I'd like
action,
to see
really.
them try. I'd like to see them try, but yeah, I mean, Fallout. I think Fallout's like almost a perfect action film.
Yeah, yeah. It actually it induces a lot of chills when I watch that movie. When
Mm,
like Tom Cruise like running after Henry Cavill at the Tate Modern with like the music, just absolutely the music in that movie is like half of the battle for me. Like they really changed up the whole score for Mission Impossible, where it was all kind of epic and big string orchestra, and now they kind of dropped it back to like heavy drums and almost like a primal sound.
Mm.
They've used that in Dead Reckoning as well. I think Dead Reckoning is great. I know it's silly and contrived, but it's Mission Impossible, dude. I mean, like, come on. I mean, if it's not being over the top, then it's doing something wrong, in my estimation. And it completely matches with the mythical figure of Ethan Hunt, like how ridiculous that character is. But yet, Tom Cruise with his charisma just completely wins you over. I think the cast is great. Some really cool new additions of Haley Atwell and Palm Clementif really steals the show for me too. Action set pieces are so like so white knuckling, and I watched it again with my dad the other night, and I loved it even more. Um, yeah, I think it's probably the best action movie of last year. If not, there's not I know there's not a lot of competition, but there's some picks I'm putting there too. But I just thought it was so entertaining, and I can't wait for part two. I'll take Mission Impossible over James Bond any day at this point. I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, with the recent kind of run of films, I think I would also pick Mission Impossible over James Bond right now. However, I was only kind of lukewarm on Dead Reckoning,
Sure.
Part One, and I think it's because like it does what Mission Impossible does best, and the action scenes are great. And I think for the previous Mission Impossible films, you don't remember the plot at all. The plot's almost
Yeah.
second to the action. Here, you kind of needed to know the plot. It was a lot more plot heavy than previous Mission Impossible films. And when you kind of like break down the plot of this recent Mission Impossible, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And maybe that's why it needs a part two. I don't know. But right now, it's just like, I don't know. It stumbled in the story side for me,
Mhm.
and it but stumbled where it was noticeable, not so much previous films, which maybe haven't had strong stories, but they kind of work. They work
Okay.
to help the action scenes. But yeah, action scenes are great. Nothing reaches the heights of Fallout. It's fine. I liked it. I liked it.
Okay, well, we'll agree to
Not my
disagree on
number
that one there.
seven.
I didn't fall privy to those sort of, maybe miscalculations as much as you did. I thought the silliness kind of almost amped up the ante a little bit for me. I had no problems with it. I do think I noticed most out of all the Mission Impossible movies that this one really was using threads to connect set piece to set piece. And I think the movie is about getting to those set pieces. It's almost like
Mm.
video game in that way. But I think they're just so well orchestrated and so awe inducing and so well edited and weaved together that, I look forward to sitting down in a cinema and watching a Mission Impossible movie like no other film. Um, I still feel that way.
I'm glad you liked it more than
Thanks,
I did
Alex. Thanks, Alex.
because I still liked it.
I know
I'm
you like.
glad you liked it more than I did.
I know you liked. And I know you like Mission Impossible, so I'm not
I did.
offended.
I'm ready to watch the next. I'll be there in the cinema. It's not turned me off that much. I just was a bit more lukewarm on it than you. I do think, and it's not on my list, but the best action film of this year might have been John Wick Chapter 4, but it's not on my list, so I won't go into detail.
I'm going to rewrite that. I'm going to challenge that again on my next pick.
Oh. Okay.
Okay,
My number
Alex.
seven, which again I'm not sure. I think you like this one, so but I don't think it will hit your top 10 potentially. But in a year where Marvel were kind of shot in the leg and are wounded, and they're a wounded bird right now, they were still able to produce one gem, and that was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
What did you think I was going to say? Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania.
I was
That's
worried
reserved
for
for
a
my
sec.
number one spot. So yeah,
That's
I
Five
mean,
Nights at Freddy's is number one, right?
oh yes, yeah, I forgot. Don't spoil it. I've had a 180 on that film. Um,
The discourse has been crazy on that film. It's sort of like rewritten cinema and what it means to Gen Z. Oh, sorry, I don't not this on Gen Z. You guys like whatever movies you like. I like stupid shit when I was young too.
God, Chris, you've lost a whole massive demographic for
Uh,
us. God's sake. Anyway, back to Guardians of the Galaxy. So I have quite an affinity for the Guardians films overall. And in like an overarching universe where conclusions are very minimal, this felt like the perfect ending for these characters, and it was nice to get some form of conclusion for them. It follows the Guardians once more, as they kind of travel to learn more about Rocket Raccoon and his origins, whilst his fate lies in the balance. And it features a really, really brilliant voice performance from Bradley Cooper, potentially his standout performance of the year. Yes, as a talking raccoon, not as
I don't think
not
he'd
as
let
Leonard
me at that.
Bernstein. No, he's fine. He's fine.
He's always
But
been amazing as Rocket, though. Like
he's,
it's
yeah, you forget it's him.
unrecognizable. Yeah.
He's so good, and he's so good in this film. The film itself is surprisingly dark, but it's also really
Mm,
hopeful and always funny. And I think James Gunn, the director, just really kind of, he's very good at kind of like walking that line of kind of dark and disturbing and weird, which is kind of where his more background in indie filmmaking has come from, to that kind of hopeful, joyous blockbuster cinema style that he's obviously created with Guardians, and
hmm
obviously has to be a part of, because you know when there's big money behind these things, you can't turn off too much of an audience. But yeah, I mean, we look at all kinds of things. Animal abuse. I think Peter put it as their number one film of the year. I'm not sure if
That's
they
it.
had many, but
Yeah.
that
If
was
you're
their
an
number
animal
one.
lover, you'll find this movie very. I mean, I hope most people are animal lovers, but if you're like a super animal lover, like this movie's going to be a little bit triggering for you. It's quite hard to watch at places.
It is, but like not in a, but like in a good
It,
way.
it
Like
is
if it,
manipulative emotionally, but like
yeah,
it does work.
it
But
does work. It does work for sure. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the MCU is not doing well right now, but you know they were still able to make this film, which is great. And I think they're going to miss James Gunn as a director as he moves
mm,
over to the DCU, and hopefully can restart that franchise, which is currently dead in its tracks. Um,
we did watch Aquaman 2 the other day, and I think they're back, baby.
yeah, wait for my number one.
I
It was fun.
liked it.
Yeah, we are Aquaman lovers. To be fair, we
Yeah,
love the first. It's so
ironic Aquaman
ironically
lovers.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I think all I'm happy to see what James Gunn's got in store next. It would be good if he like maybe didn't do superhero films. Like I'd love to see him go back and do some
Mm.
other stuff. I think he could probably make any film he wanted right now potentially.
It's funny
But
to
yeah,
even think. It's like the first time I've ever heard anybody say that. Like you just don't think about James Gunn doing anything outside of the comic sphere. It's such a funny. It's actually such a funny thing to think about. I never thought about it that way. I agree. I think Guardians 4 is
three.
really three. Guardians 4. I just
This is
saw.
the problem with the MCU, man, because it's like there's two
No, it's not.
Infinity
It's
War
not. I know. Look,
films.
don't get. No, I'm not a bit. Like, look, listen to me. I
You're like, I
know.
know the lore.
I know the basic film lore. I literally have a poster for another movie beside it that has 4 on it, and I read that. So I'm not an idiot. I'm
Uh,
not a boomer. These kids and their Guardians movies. No, Guardians 3 fell into my top third of my like last year's list.
mm,
I really enjoyed it. I think it took me by surprise. It's annoying that it is sort of a temporary course correction for Marvel because it's only prolonged its death even more. I feel so. It temporarily reignited some love and no, it's. I do think it works on an emotional level, not really like any other Marvel movies have. I think
mm,
Marvel movies do have their moments. I think like Infinity War and Endgame certainly did. But this one, yeah, this one it was a little bit of a nice little surprise halfway through last year, and yeah, it was very manipulative emotionally in terms of its music needle drop choices, in terms of its sort of like its PETA centric sort of plot devices. But I was like putty in its hand, to be honest. I kind of I fell into its lap, and I was really sad but also content to see the Guardians sort of wave goodbye to us at the end. I thought it was
yes.
a really amazing way to send off these characters
Yeah.
after, like, after kind of being ill used in the last couple of films where they're sort of side characters, especially like Thor: Love and Thunder. I know they're only in it partially, but it's great to sort of say, oh, remind yourself of how great that first Guardians movie was, and it kind of returned to that form for me.
Yes. Yeah. They are better in the hands of James Gunn, and I think that's
100%.
why. not. I sound like an absolute kind of fanboy of James Gunn right now. Like he can do no wrong.
He's going to
Um,
save DC.
but I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we have seen them in the hands of other directors, and like I think it works, like you said, in Infinity War, but not so much other things. Anyway, this isn't about the MCU. Um, R.I.P.
R.I.P. MCU. There's time. Honestly,
They'll be fine. They'll be fine. I
if
think we'll
there's a
get.
pulse, they'll keep it going.
Yeah, I think I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine. They're in a bit of a hiccup stage at the moment. So.
Okay. So that brings me to my number 7. Which I
Wait,
thought is it
is it not your number 6? What did you put for your number 7?
my number 6? Sorry.
Sorry, I thought I'd skipped ahead. Then you skipped.
No, number 6 for me. That's good because we're not going to be here all night. My number 6 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Um, it would be remiss in my duty if I did not put this in top 10. I had an incredible experience going to see this on the big IMAX screen. Best way to watch this movie. It is
All
just,
right,
I know, sorry to rub it in.
rub it in.
This movie is a lot. Like, this movie throws a shit ton at you. I mean, it is very stimulating, to say the least. Like, every form of visual art that they could think of and put on the screen and put into a superhero movie, it's here. I think thematically, the first Spider-Man movie is slightly better, but that's not to shed any like ill light on this film. I think it's near masterpiece like territory, and that's saying a lot for a movie that is also a part one as well. Um, it feels like a full meal in itself. I don't feel like shortchanged by this thing at all. Far from it. I feel like I got a bunch of movies in one. But it's not quantity over quality. It retains that first film's sort of spirit and heart. The characters are so interesting. But it is the artwork and the humor and sort of just the momentum that these guys can put on the screen. It's just like I am just completely in awe. You're seeing kind of animation being reinvented on the screen, and it's already feeding into films that we're starting to get out released. Parallels like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, a movie I loved from last year. Just came out of my top 10, but I absolutely loved it to bits. Definitely leans on that animation, so we're already seeing it like feed into other aspects of media. It's so incredible. I can't wait for part 2.
I will talk about that film later.
I knew it was going to be in your list. I knew it was going to be higher than me. So that's no surprise to me at all. That's the first non-surprise.
I love it. I love
I love
it.
I love it too. That's why it's in my top 10.
I'm glad. I'm glad to see it in there, Chris. I really am. My number 6 is Anatomy of a Fall.
Mm-hmm.
Anatomy of a Fall is a courtroom drama. It's about a woman who's suspected of murder when her husband seemingly falls out of the window of their house in the Alps. And their only witness to this potential murder is their partially blind son. The word I would use to describe this is solid.
Solid.
It's solid. It's a
It's in your
very
top
solid
10
film.
though.
Pardon?
It's in your top 10 though.
It's very solid. It's very, very solid.
It's
It's
as
really
solid
well
as can
done.
be.
It's cold and clinical, but it's so well done.
It's also snowy, so that's probably why it's cold.
I do love snow on film. It does get me every time. But it really breaks down the kind of like inner lives of the family unit, the private lives that we all have that maybe we wouldn't want others to see, and how when those kind of private moments are kind of blown up in a courtroom or on TV, how these things can kind of twist perceptions and get dragged to the center stage and kind of really kind of cloud people's judgments and make things very messy. And it's a very good way of kind of really looking at like what it is to be human and how much we reveal of ourselves. And I love the fact that it doesn't take you by the hand. You are very much part of the courtroom. You're part of the sensation in a way, and you are kind of tiptoeing between. Did the character that Sandra Hüller play? Did she kill her
Yeah.
husband? Did she not? And you are tiptoeing around all of that as well. It's just really well done. yeah, it's difficult to fault it. I know, obviously we did a review on it, and I did say it could have been a TV show. I still think it could have been a
Mm,
really great TV show, but it's also a really good film. So I'm
yeah.
not complaining. I'm not complaining, and I do think Sandra Hüller here has one of the best performances of the year. She's really, really great as the kind of mother who is put on trial. So yeah, Anatomy of the Fall, really, really liked it.
Okay, this list is kind of more similar than we thought. This is my number five, my next pick. Yeah, I absolutely love this film. Too. I think it's a little bit more than solid. I know you mean that in the best way. You don't mean that in a sort of like a negative way that I think a lot of people usually use solid for like a 3 out of 5. I don't think I think we need a we mean that. Ooh. Alex has just cranked open a beer. If anyone could hear that,
I was
no
trying to do
judgment
it
here.
quietly. I'm so sorry.
I already pre clanked my beers before this episode, so I'm all sorted. Um, so yeah, this movie's incredible. I think you're right. I think Sandra Huller, it's a vehicle for her more than anything. Um, and I think she's got. I'm really excited about her other performance that hasn't been released over here yet with the Zone of Interest. That
Ooh,
movie's.
is she in Zone of Interest? I didn't
I
know
think
that.
first or second bill on that one too.
I didn't know that.
So
Ooh.
so yeah, it looks like it's going to be a really strong year for her. I mean, the kind of the awards seem to be, and people are saying that her her performance in the Zone of Interest is even better. So I'm finding that really hard to believe because she absolutely runs away with this film. It's so reliant on her. It's crazy. It's so mental because anybody else, a lesser actor who kind of leans into a sort of a way of thinking, she's so good at tiptoeing the line of ambiguity of just being honest on screen that it actually makes us more unsteady than anything. If she was just to be outright villainous, then there's some comfort in that. There's such discomfort at not knowing exactly where we are with that character. We are introduced to the story on the day of the murder after an altercation has already happened. So we already have preloaded judgments. We just don't see the thing happen. And yeah, having a lot of perspective from the son who's partially blind, and also the even the dog, just giving us perspectives from all sort of angles and making this movie so hyper focused. Um, but very stripped back and subtle. Yeah, I think it's so involving, and the ambiguity of did it, was it her or was it not her, carries you all the way through. It's nearly 3 hour runtime, so yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie. Yeah, and I think it's quite good. Like, I think it's quite accessible. I think people who maybe don't even watch foreign language films, I know this is like 50% English. I think a lot of people could walk into this, and kind of dip their toes in the water of foreign
Yeah,
cinema and maybe kind of come out the other way and want to explore a little bit more. So I think it's a really
I
good.
agree. I don't think there's anyone I hesitate to recommend it to. I think it
Mm,
kind of runs in the same way that like a lot of your kind of BBC crime thrillers might
exactly.
run as well. Like that's what I mean. Like it has got that TV show vibe to it.
Yes, but I think yeah, you're right. I think it's just it has that cinematic quality, that patience that you get
Mm,
from a film that perhaps conventions of TV would have slipped into here and made it a little bit more general than it
yes, it's
usually
probably
they.
better to sit like get it in all in one sitting as well.
100%. So yeah, that's my number five pick.
Brilliant, brilliant, nice one. So my number five is Talk to Me, which was another big surprise for me um, as a horror film. Because horror's been a genre that I think only in the last like 4 or 5 years I've come to appreciate a bit more.
Hmm.
And Talk to Me was actually made by filmmakers. I forget their names. Let me have a quick look. Their names were Michael Philippou and Danny Philippou.
Yeah, identical twins, aren't they?
Identical twins, but they were
Yeah.
YouTubers before making this film, and I guess maybe they still are. I don't really know. I have not looked into it that much, but there is a kind of marriage here of those kind of cinematic and aesthetically creepy horror films that we've come to know and love from A24, but also the kind of modern sensibilities of a film that's kind of almost got its finger on the pulse of social media trends and that kind of underlying creepiness that comes with certain things online and viral sensations, all that kind of
The
stuff.
boogeyman aspect of like your Reddit forums and your sort of mythical sort of urban legends.
Absolutely. I mean, the premise is pretty much perfect for this kind of film, for a horror film, right? It's about a game that sweeps up a group of teens that involves like an embalmed hand that can conjure spirits from the dead.
Yeah.
And though that group of teens gets very quickly hooked and addicted on it, and it's very much a drug, and they're kind of hooked on that thrill of being able to do this before the kind of very quite violent consequences come for them.
Which is exactly what would happen in real life.
Yeah. So I think it has a lot to say about the way things the way potentially teenagers get swept up in the waves of things that are seemingly entertaining without thinking of those consequences. And also it's just a great scary film. Like out of all the horror films this year, I'd say this was probably one of the only ones that like truly scared me at times and was like
Mm.
quite difficult to watch in places. It goes quite far with some of the violence. A lot of kids getting their heads smashed.
Yes.
So if you don't like that, don't watch it. But honestly, I just it honestly felt like a breath of fresh air. And yeah, I mean, it has franchise potential written all over it with the game element to it. And I know they're going to make another one. I hope it doesn't go down the route of Paranormal Activity where you just kind of get sick of it after a while. I hope this is a horror franchise that's here to stay with really interesting stuff coming from it. I feel like it hasn't, you could really go deeper with the story. Um, I just found it very interesting, really interesting cast of characters. They're not all kind of cut from the same cloth. They're complex, they're different,
Mhm.
and you potentially don't always root for them at times and stuff like that. So really good to kind of see that happen. And yeah, it was just one of those films that I think I saw pretty early in the year, and it's just really stuck with me. And if anybody was to ask, what's the horror film from this year that I need to watch, I'd be like, talk to me, definitely.
Oh, wow,
As
that's a
in
really
the film, talk to me, but also talk
talk
to me.
talk to me, yeah, yeah. That's a really strong recommend. I mean, I kind of agree. Like, when you say it like that, I agree with all the things that you're saying. I think it has real moments of provocation. I think especially, it's not afraid to be even nasty to its kindest characters. I think when I especially think about the younger brother, you're talking about the head being smashed in, that is probably our most innocent figure in this whole film, and it's pretty nasty what this movie does to him. Like,
Yeah,
visually it's very gnarly to look at. And yeah, I think you're right. I think making the main character, she's a kind of problematic, not unsympathetic character. I think that's been quite a big theme of last year in terms of a lot of the good films that came out last year is unconventional female leads, which is something I'm actually quite you know we like to see a little bit more of. That conversation kind of started with Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Lost Daughter, and I kind of like to see that trend being picked up a little bit more, just more realistic interpretations of people and characters. I think, I don't know, for me it was just like I wasn't as scared as I wanted to be. I'm so sorry. But it feels like I've watched too many horror movies, or maybe my mind is melted or something. Um, yeah, and you scoffed at me whenever we reviewed the film because I found the provocative scene of the wallaby being ran over more more effective than anything
oh
else in the
yeah.
film, which yeah, harkens back to our BFI series where I get disgusted at any animal cruelty. So yeah, that's a personal level. I think the movie is quite good. In fact, I think it misses some things. I think it has a lot of promise. It promises set up for a lot of things. There's a world it's tapping into that we don't really kind of get a full grasp on, and it's teasing us the whole way through. But there's a lot of flair here, and especially for a debut film, these guys are going to go far. It's showing a lot of promise, and yeah, I want more horror films from them because I think they've definitely got a unique visual sensibility. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it definitely fits into that sort of A24 distribution bracket. Like, it fits into that sort of house, that sort of um, that sort of umbrella really really well. So I do like it.
And it's a horror film where they market it as a horror film, and when you went to see it, it was definitely a horror film. It wasn't some slow
Yes.
art house film, and that's not me digging at A24 at all, because I love a lot of their kind of art house horror films that they have been
Mhm.
releasing. But I do always find it funny some of the marketing campaigns when, especially when you've seen the film, you're like, that is not the film general audiences are going to go see.
What was the one that that had a lot of controversy a few years ago? Is it like It Comes at Night or something, where it was like it
Oh
was
yeah,
marketed as a
that was
full on like,
really good though.
and it was a much more like slow burn art house sort of horror film, which was much more suggestive and thoughtful. But people thought it was going to its trailer was like a big bashy crashy horror Conjuring esque sort of film, and
Yeah.
people didn't get that. I get it, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember trying to like wrap my head around because I watched the film and I really really liked it. But you're right, it's really really slow burn, and I don't think it gets particularly scary until the end potentially. And
Mm.
then even then, it's like not, it's definitely not
Depends what you want out of
a
a horror
standard
movie.
horror film.
Like, I really enjoy things like Halloween. I love slashers. I like these sort of. I even enjoy the James Wan sort of horror films to an extent. But it depends what you want. Like, some people are scared by that stuff. Me personally, I'm not. I prefer more a slow burn, like something like We're All Going to the World's Fair, which just kind of it's more atmospheric, and I kind of get more like I sink into kind of the rhythm and the creepy vibes of that film more than
Mm,
I find real life sort of tangible things more scary than fantasy. But I think that's just a personal thing. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I think this film was. I think it's good. It's a good pick. It's a good pick. I don't disagree, but it didn't make my top 10.
yeah. That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Number 5. This is another one for me that it actually was higher originally, but some movies kind of came out the last couple of months, and I had to kind of put it down lower in the list. And that is Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, a movie that brought so much expectation with it. It's Martin's self-proclaimed sort of magnum opus in a way. It's his big movie.
Mm,
Um, and his version on the western, I think it's phenomenal. I think I won't get into the themes too much here because there's a lot of movie to talk about here, and we previously covered it on a previous episode. But yeah, I think it's pretty stellar across the board. I've only seen it the once, but I completely fell for its spell the first time, and I'm really really looking forward to catching up with it again someday. Um, yeah, and it's a shame that people had to catch this thing on Apple Plus. I think it'd be Apple TV. It'd be a great way to watch this film is see it on the biggest screen possible. It's visually stunning. It's so thoughtful and contemplative. It kind of just does everything a Martin Scorsese film should do, but also sucker punches you at the end with kind of an ending that came out of nowhere. And some people might see it as gimmicky, but I saw it as really sort of a tender sort of tribute to a forgotten group of people. So I thought this was a lovely tribute to a part of history that I never learned about until this year, and subsequently everybody else on the planet Earth did.
nice, nice. I will talk about that in a few minutes.
Okay, I feel reassured.
It didn't make my number four, but you can probably guess where it's going to make. So yeah, my number four was actually Oppenheimer, which I thought saw a return to form for Christopher Nolan,
Mhm.
mainly just because of Tenet. I think I probably liked Dunkirk, but I wasn't big on it. But I did not like Tenet that much. But so yeah, this is a
Mm.
return to form, but also his most kind of traditional film, despite being slightly muddied by his kind of sensibilities of pretentiousness and mixed
Obsession of
timelines
time,
and
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't nearly as irritating here, I would say. So yeah, a pretty standard for Christopher Nolan. It's a biopic about J. Robert Oppenheimer and the creation of the nuclear bomb, and then the subsequent fallout. And for me, it was in the world of Barbenheimer, in terms of quality of film, I think this is the one that won. I don't think Barbie's on either of our lists. I may be wrong.
Neither of
Um,
these films are on my list, but I would
neither.
say I like Barbie more.
Oh, you like Barbie more? Fair enough. I
Only
also
marginally so.
I still really like Barbie. Don't get me wrong. Still really like it. But I just think if if I love the fact that the two of them both brought people back to the cinema and made it more of an event
For
thing.
that 2 weeks.
And I'm really surprised that this film made as much money as it did, considering it was a 3-hour film about the
Mhm.
creation of nuclear bomb. And it was great to see that kind of trend of like people feeling they had to watch it next to Barbie, like it was this weird pairing that kind of worked and didn't work all at the same time. But yeah, I mean, along with Killers of the Flower Moon, an incredible cast with Cillian Murphy at the lead. I think he's a solid bet for the Oscar win. One of my favorite scores of the year from Ludwig Göransson. I think it ties the film together through this.
Interesting.
It's got this very montagey feel to the whole thing, that almost gives it this kind of like otherworldly atmosphere at times. Like the music really kind of like brings you in and out of different timelines, and you're just kind of like hit with kind of I don't want to say epicness because I feel like I'm just like licking the ass of Christopher
Yeah.
Nolan, but it is. I think there's a lot of epicness going on, and I'm not like a Nolan fanboy that much. All right, so don't come for me, because I because I do
You'd be in good company.
I do think that he sometimes gets too wrapped up in his own self importance here, but I think the self importance and the grandeur works in Oppenheimer because I think it's a film that doesn't throw around judgment, it doesn't condemn anyone, and it kind of leaves it up to you. It's putting, these things on screen, and you get to look at the kind of spectacle of it all and the horrors of it all. And I know there's been some criticisms about, you know, how certain um certain demographics are maybe left out, the Japanese in particular, because you don't see kind of the consequences of the nuclear bomb
Well,
so much in that
people
world.
say that's a critique of the film.
Well, I've heard critiques saying that like there's not one Japanese person in a film about the nuclear bomb.
Oh wow, that's like that's. I think that's a misreading. That only helps if the movie if tenfold. Really, it only aids in what it's trying to do. But yeah, go on.
Oh, but like it's almost like it,
Yeah,
because we see it
the
because we see
absence.
it from the view of Oppenheimer as he would have seen it. It almost like alienates like different people. The
Well, the
consequence
whole
of his actions
exactly,
are so muddied; they're so much in his mind rather than at the forefront, like
and
in front of him.
also the point of this movie is to dehumanize anyone outside of the objective of the characters that we're in.
Mm.
That's the mind frame that these people were operating on, and that's what the movie's trying to sell to you. So I think cutting to Japanese people, it would have just made it melodramatic and would have tone deaf the whole thing.
Yeah, I think when you're in the space of Oppenheimer, like he's rarely not in a scene. Like it
Hmm.
is his headspace, and like the script's even written in first person, so like it's very much his film. I think getting to kind of visit those events from the same point of view he would have had, which is just hearing about it on the radio, maybe a little bit of
Yes,
TV footage, but
a
not
post-event
much.
guilt, and yeah,
Yeah, like, your mind conjures up crazy things, and, you can only imagine the kind of disaster that struck. And, like, do you live with that? Because you didn't pull the trigger, but you did create the device and all that kind of stuff. And I think it deals with that really well. And I think, like any good film, it kind of leaves it up to the audience to judge or
hmm
not to judge. And kind of, I like that. It was another film where I don't think you're not always on Oppenheimer's side. It's not a film about look how great this guy was. It's like this was a period in time where you know needs must and all that kind of stuff. Was it right? Was it wrong? I don't know, but it happened, and you get to decide, and I like that. So yeah, the more I think about it, and the more I hear the criticisms leveled at it, and I disagree with a few of them, and that makes
hmm
me kind of think that maybe I'm more positive on it than I thought. And then whenever I hear the music, I'm just like, such a
yeah.
great score.
Christopher Nolan movies are sort of like whenever you try to like play Spotify on your TV for like the sound bar, like the voices are always like not quite right, but the music's always booming. Yeah, that's a good pick. I did really like the movie. It's not top 10 for me. Really did enjoy it though. I think it also it warrants revisits just because it's a Christopher Nolan movie
Mm,
and he likes to make them as cryptic as he can, but still make the narrative thread really pull through. I didn't feel lost during this thing. I think it's held down by some terrific performances. I think specifically Robert Downey Jr. has a great turn in this as a
mm.
supporting role. He Seeing him in a sort of different way I hadn't seen him before. So there's a lot in here to love. I think you're right. I think it's a return to form for Nolan. But I haven't seen Tenet. I missed that movie, and I don't
Have you
I
not
don't know
seen
I
it?
don't know I know, man. I don't know when I'm going to get around to seeing it. I love Dunkirk. No, I wasn't lukewarm on Dunkirk. I really liked that movie. I liked it more than Oppenheimer. But no, I still think that. the guy's got skills.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
um, Number three, I'm going to make a sort of brief for you, Alex, because I know you haven't seen this movie yet. This movie came out on Boxing Day. I've seen it twice already in cinemas.
Okay, I know what it is.
It is one of my it's my boy. It's it's one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, Hayao Miyazaki, in probably his last swan song send off film. He said that like five times since 2001 with Spirited Away, and
So you
since
don't
came
know for
back.
sure.
Well, he is like in his 80s now, so, and it took him 7 years to make this, so it probably is. And
Fair enough.
he said that this movie, this is The Boy and the Heron. He said that this is his parting gift to his grandchildren, which is, I'm already well enough just thinking about it. This movie, like, I would recommend everybody see it as a visual treat, and it's, but the thematic energy that this movie has and the poignancy that will no doubt hit you at the last 10 minutes and hit me a like a bulldozer both times I went to see it, stems from your relationship with Studio Ghibli as a production house. Going all the way back to its inception with Miyazaki back in the early 80s. So, I would really stress before you even watch Boy and the Heron, although I want people to support it. And so I would really stress that you watch all of Miyazaki's work before this. Connect the thematic threads because they're really clear, and I think this movie will hit you so much harder than if you were just to go straight into The Boy and Heron and only seen like Spirited Away or Hoyle's Moving Castle. Same, if you
You're
only
talking
see.
about me.
I'm talking about you, but I'm talking about a lot of people. A lot of people. Miyazaki's such an interesting person. He is both very closed, but also there's a lot in the dossier about him. There's a lot, to read about him as a person. Someone who is very a bit of a grump, really. He's a chain smoker who he kind of doesn't really emote a lot in the exterior. He can almost come across as nihilistic in person, but the work that he produces is so joyful and captures such an innocence and vitality about life, and such a wisdom that you can't believe it's coming from this guy. It's also internal. He has a lot of like repressed feelings and guilt about being an absentee father. His father helped construct airplanes for World War II on the Japanese side. There's so much rich, and every movie that Miyazaki makes, there's this theme about flight and planes, and there's this thematic thread that goes across all of his films. So yeah, The Boy and the Heron is stunning. I think he's the only filmmaker that spans like a 40-year period who has a perfect filmography I can only think of. Um, so yeah, this is incredible, and I so hope that it gets best animated film of the Oscars this year, because in my opinion it's no contest. Even though I love Spider-Man,
I
this
know, I know.
like Miyazaki, his last movie, which was supposed to be his last retirement, which was The Wind Rises in 2013, lost the Oscar to Frozen, which is disgusting. So, he deserves it. This is going to be his last one. This is his crowning jewel on his kingdom, his self-titled Kingdom of Dreams of Madness. So, yeah, um, I love this, and I'll be watching it and buying it and watching it for years to come.
That's great to hear, and obviously, like you mentioned, I haven't seen it, and we've been discussing, here's a little behind the scenes of the film angle for you all.
Mm.
We've been discussing how we kind of rectify the massive blind spot that is Studio Ghibli for myself, and how Kris, a massive lover of Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki, might be able to curate some kind of history lesson, some kind of Ghibli festival for myself, the Ghibli angle, if you may,
That'd be great.
and have that as a kind of reoccurring series maybe throughout this year. And so something we're potentially working on, we might be discussing. Is it Ghibli or Ghibli?
I would say Ghibli.
Sorry, Ghibli, the Ghibli angle, and we'll
It's
be
a common
discussing.
it's a common question, I think, but I think most people would say Ghibli.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll be discussing the Ghibli films a lot more, I think, coming up. Kris is just going to find a good place for me to start, and we're talking about potentially introducing a film every now and then, giving me a little bit of backstory, almost like Mark Kermode does for some of the BFI films.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back and I'll kind of give my thoughts and why I'm an idiot for not watching it, or why you're an idiot for loving it so
Yeah,
much.
exactly. Well, the jury's out at the minute, so I'm really excited to start that journey later this year with you. Anyway, so yeah, I think a
Yeah,
boy in the herons. I'm glad it exists because it started this conversation. So,
brilliant.
Alex, what is your number three?
My number three is what was your number five? Killers of the Flower Moon. I think it was fair to say I think it was both our probably most anticipated films of the year
Hmm. Yeah,
going into
We're big Martin
2023.
fanboys.
Yeah, anything from Martin Scorsese. I mean, he's the master of cinema. He rarely misses, and he definitely hasn't here. It's an epic. It's sweeping. I mean, I know it is an adaptation of a novel, but it truly feels novelistic in style,
Hmm.
as it tells of the kind of conspiracy and murders of the Osage people in 1920s Oklahoma. It's a 3.5 hour film that doesn't waste one of those minutes. You hear us gripe on about long films a lot, or probably me more than Chris. But when a film earns it, God damn it, it earns it. And
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese earned it here. It's completely gripping. It's really compelling. It tells a really dark story with care and sensitivity. Again, another one of the great casts of the year. Leonardo DiCaprio almost playing against type here as this kind of pathetic, despicable character.
Hmm.
His wife, played by the brilliant Lily Gladstone, again probably a shoe-in for the Oscars this year. I do. I wish she had more of a role, but I mean, you can't change history. She was bedridden for most of the film, and
She played bedridden well.
she played bedridden really well. But when she gets those moments to shine, she's so
Hmm.
good. And
Yeah.
I feel like she was pretty much relatively unknown up until this film. At least for me, I think she's had some TV roles, so some people might recognize her more than others. But in terms of like mainstream pop culture film world, relatively new. So really good to see that, as well as kind of that kind of representation of indigenous
Hmm.
people on the screen in parts for made for and about indigenous people. So that's great. But yeah, and then also probably my favorite performance in the film, though I don't feel like he's getting enough buzz. He should be winning the supporting actor nod
Hmm.
immediately. Robert De Niro, or Bob De Niro. I love it when people call him Bob. I don't know why, I just love that. He plays an
Feel like your friends then.
utterly terrifying, evil hiding in plain sight guy. uh, and I don't know, Bob.
But as subtly as he can do it, I think that's the thing. I think both of the male performances, him and DiCaprio, seem to both. I feel like they're both going to slip through this whole award season. I think they're both like near career best performances for both of these actors.
Mm,
Yeah, you're right. Robert De Niro's kind of He's so good in this. He's so menacing in such an unshowy way, which any other actor would have camped it up here. But he is so like you can completely believe the whole wolf in sheep's clothing thing. I can completely believe that these people thought this guy was the whole tentpole of this community, but obviously the opposite was true.
yeah, I mean, he does his best work with Scorsese. He
Hmm.
does. He really does. He's not
Not
in.
bad,
He's
Grandpa.
No, he's not on snooze mode like he is in other films
I
sometimes.
do, you know what? I like that he doesn't take life his career too seriously. That he will just like do anything, you know.
Mm,
And he can be good. I mean, like analyze this. Like it was his first kind of go at that, and that's like was like the biggest comedy of the '90s, like gross wise. And like he's funny in that. He can do it, but yeah, these old grandpa things are like terrible,
I
terrible. These horny grandpa movies. Stop it, Bob.
Yeah, God, I'd love to be able to call him Bob.
He probably
So
just tell you to go fuck yourself.
people who know him call him Bob, and like when they'll
Yeah.
say it on a TV show or a chat show or whatever, and I'm like, damn it, I wish I knew him well enough to call him Bob. Bob De Niro. I don't know. Feel like I can't, but uh, anyway, simply put, this is cinema. Killers of the Flower Moon. Peak cinema, baby. Let's go.
But he's You heard it from Alex. He is ramped. He is charged up.
I think that second beer is hitting me.
I can tell. Um, okay, well, yeah, that's as good as any. That should be your number one, right? With that sort of praise.
Well, because I said peaks. Yeah, and that's true. Oh, but my next two, I mean, my top three, I think are all brilliant, brilliant films.
So that's five. I can see it's Five Nights at Freddy's and
Shotgun Wedding.
Shotgun Wedding. Super Mario Bros.
I didn't see it, so I cannot cast judgment.
Okay, not being around the bush. My number two film of 2023 is Past Lives, the
Ooh.
directorial debut from Celine Song. I know, like yourself, we both got this movie for Christmas and Blu-ray, and both proud owners of this, and put
Very
it on
proud.
our
Very proud.
very proud owners. Um, oh my goodness, this movie like is just one big sucker punch. You know, although there's not parallels, direct parallels of my own life, I definitely saw elements of my own relationship in this movie that really transcended the internal story going on here across the world, crossing worlds and everything. But I felt so placed within this grounded story. But these two performances with Greta Lee and TOU are so groundbreaking, and it really Celine Song just knows exactly what to do with the camera. You said earlier last year that New York has never looked like this, like on
Mm.
camera. Certainly, what I've seen, it is so beautiful. It's just like a beautiful poem. This whole thing that spans a 20-year period, but feels so epic and so it's just such a big gesture, but it's a movie like on pen and paper when you think about two deeply connected people from their childhood and they reunite later on. It sounds like a bit of a cheese fest, but it is one of the most grounded, most thought provoking films of the whole year, and it will stay with anybody. I haven't heard anybody not come out of this without feeling completely moved by it. It's great.
Mm. I cannot talk about it yet. Which
Okay.
maybe ruins the fact that I'm not going to talk about it next. Uh, love it. Number two for me is Spider Man Beyond the Spider Verse.
Hmm.
Have I got the right title there?
Across the Spider Verse.
Oh, God, that's the first one. Damn it. I'll say that again.
Into the Spider Verse. No, you said Beyond the Spider Verse.
Oh,
Is that the
that's the
next one?
third one,
That's the
right?
third one.
Oh, goodness
That's
me.
that's your number two for the not next year, the year after.
Yes, most likely. Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, so this one may be a little bit more obvious because of my love of Spider Man. However, I don't just love any Spider Man film regardless, okay? I am critical of these things. But when I was watching this film, I felt like I was watching history being made. Like
Holy
I was
shit!
watching the format of animation.
Oh my god, the third eye is forming on your forehead right now.
Shut up, man. I was watching the animation format style undergo a transformation that has been seen since the last Spider Verse film because every industry.
Such an expansive time.
Yes, but when you look at the films we've had in the last 2 years, all the animation studios are trying to catch up to what the last Spider Verse film was doing and the way that
Mhm.
style is. Before this, it
Yeah,
was kind of this
Boss
kind of
Baby too. Yeah, is up there. Yeah.
animation was going through this period of like we're trying to make things as kind of like photorealistic as possible, and
Mhm.
Spider Verse came along and was like, no, this is animation. You can do whatever. You can stylize. You can do whatever. And they've upped the ante again here. They're like, hold my beer. I'm raising the bar for the animation world once more. Stop laughing.
No, it's perfect. It's a perfect analogy. You're right. It is. It is. It's a complete. This movie is a complete flex.
Yeah, I mean, Disney are screwed, aren't they? Like, I haven't seen Wish. I can't cast judgment, but I heard it shit.
Wish looks dull.
All
I,
right.
I I have not heard good things about it. So yeah.
But not only is it a triumph of the format and it's doing all these things that, are only kind of possible now with the way technology has moved on and different frame rates and just really kind of pushing animation style to its fullest. It's also a really beautifully crafted story that for a fanboy of Spider-Man, it understands and it also loves the character of Spider-Man and it's just
Mhm.
all tied together from what I think is the best score of the year, if not one of the best scores of all time. Daniel
I still
Pemberton,
yes. The
composer.
whole like last 20 minutes of that movie is just pure like hype. Like
It's
that
almost like
score.
I've watched it again recently, and it's almost as if the score never dies down. It is constantly
No.
weaving in between genres and themes, and just it, like honestly makes the whole film like this, like all-encompassing, godlike dream of just. But like you said, there's so much going on at the whole time. But like
Mhm.
I don't know, just really interesting. It felt like everybody involved was really kind of pushing the creative juices to the fullest. Maybe too far, according to
Mhm.
the news. Might have been some animators that were maybe overworked. All right, not good. Don't do that. And I think the only thing that doesn't work for this film is the fact that it has a cliffhanger. Even though I'd love the cliffhanger, I just think when you have to wait potentially maybe 4 years, maybe four, we don't know the actual release date of the new one
Eh.
yet. They haven't finished it. They may not have started it. All the news is different. I think that kind of works against it at the moment. But oh man, I could. I mean, it does have a conclusion, but it leaves too much hanging. I think but I could rewatch this every week and not get
Mhm.
bored. It's so much fun. It's got so much heart. It gives me goosebumps. Um, I
I'm gonna
I
put it
love it.
on now.
You're gonna put on
No,
there.
it's too late. But I really do want to catch up again with it. I think you're right. Like the smaller moments even just resonate and stick with me even more than like even the big climatic moments. I'm thinking about the bit with Miles and his mother, like
Mm,
at the water tower, like after the party, and like I remember like it is some such poignant conversations between them two. Like the first movie was sort of like Miles and his father, and this one is sort of like you get the full dynamic of that triangle. The parent and son relationship is completely completed by this film, and it raises the stakes even higher. It's
mm.
so like
And
it's so
Gwen
masterfully
Stacy and
weaved.
her dad, like the
Yes,
first 20 minutes, you're not even with Miles. It feels like a different film. It honestly feels like issues of comic books from, that have an overarching story, but maybe different writers, different artists, and like then they all come together at the end. Like,
very
honestly, it
well.
just feels
Yeah,
like a really well done thing. It's just, there's so much love for the medium of comic books and how that can be this world of different styles and art, but it all culminates in this one grand big thing. I don't know, just it was great.
yeah. It's an all inducing film,
I
like
was
for sure.
exhausted watching it. Like, don't get me
It is
wrong, there's
exhausting.
so much going on, my eyes hurt, but
It was that it was so exhausting, but like the movie ends in such a climatic way, like in such a cliffhanger that like I was ready. Like, give me the second one right now, and I would happily have watched it.
yeah, I can't wait. I'm gonna have to double bill it when the new one comes out. It is such a shame that I think it was touted as like coming out this year, i.e., 2024. But by the sounds of it, it's they've not even like finished recording the voices. So I think we're gonna be waiting like another 3 years,
Hmm.
which is sad.
That is disappointing.
But I
That
don't want anybody to get overworked.
yes, don't want anybody like jumping off a bridge for like for their for being overworked or being it's terrible. Like, and it's the same in the gaming industry. It's like it's just as our art is getting more intricate and money is becoming more an issue with creating art, these crunch times are just getting more intense. So, yeah, let's just pull the pedal back. We don't need to release 10 things from a company a year. We can just
Yeah.
it's
And as
fine. We're
much as I
patient.
can't wait, I can wait.
I can wait. Yes,
I can wait.
yes,
We can all
exactly.
wait.
Looking at you, Cyberpunk. My number one movie of the year is my most lowbrow number one of any year. No, that's terribly condescending. I love this movie. It's Dungeons and Dragons, and it's nobody else's number one of last year. But
And
I
this
don't know
isn't even a
why.
joke.
This isn't. Fuck off, man. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. I had the most emotional response to this movie I had any movie last year. I'm not even kidding. I actually I laughed my ass off. I was crying in certain parts of this movie. I freaking love Dungeons and Dragons. It just caught me so off guard. We're talking about a lot of movies last year that caught us by surprise, but this one crowns all of them. It you saw that trailer in cinema 50 times. It looked generic as hell. It looked like
It did.
whatever. I got never one of these. It is so good. It has no right to be this good. It is. It reminded me. It is like the new version of The Princess Bride for me. It has completely captures that tone of how good a classic fantasy comedy film could be. and it nails the casting, it nails the atmosphere, the dynamic between this main group, and the crew led by Chris Pine. Not one of them is a miss. They all get their moment to shine. They all come together in a real like, it is it is the cringy family dynamic thing that they all come together, but it's so well earned. It's creative in moments like think about the bit where she's shape shifting the druid girl. She's shape shifting out the castle as she's being chased, and she turns into like a deer, like a rat, a bird, and it's this one shot, like well, seemingly one shot take that goes on. It's so creative.
That was good. I did like that.
And Hugh Grant is the villain again. Sassy Hugh Grant doing his thing. It's great. It's so fun. I love Chris Pine. I love it when he's in this mode of like sort of Captain Kirk Star Trek mode where he's a really good sort of ragtag leader. Yeah, this thing is just so rewatchable. It's crazy, and I will be. Yeah, I don't know why I don't own it right now.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't get the memo at Christmas time, so I'm gonna have to go deep into my own pocket here. I love this movie to bits, and yeah, it doesn't have the artistic heights of The Boy and the Heron or Past Lives or Anatomy of the Fall, even though I love those movies. But I have to recognize that you know what? When a blockbuster is good, it's good, and that is the root of the movies I loved growing up as a kid, like those Indiana Jones or the Spielbergian type of films that kind of entered me into loving film that I am now. So I'm proud to put this as my number one.
And you're not even a Dungeons and Dragons player, are you?
I love this movie so much that I'm on the hype train. I've bought Baldur's Gate 3 and I'm finishing Zelda at the minute. As soon as I've finished that, I am playing that game, which is a Dungeons and Dragons game that won Game of the Year last year. So I'm
Oh
really
wait,
excited for
Baldur's
it.
Gate 3 is a Dungeons and Dragons game.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate is the main city in Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
So yeah,
I
so
didn't know that.
I'm looking forward to jumping to that too. So
There you go.
it made a D&D fan out of me.
There you go. There you go. You have it there. I really like it. It's a lot of fun. It feels like Guardians of the Fantasy Galaxy. Like
Yeah, I
I
get that.
there's a lot of fun to be had here, and I think they're making or planning on making a second one. I think it just did well enough, and yeah, do you know what? I what all those trailers and stuff like you mentioned that we saw a million times prior to the film's release. I was kind of the same. I thought it was going to be rubbish, and it ended up really surprising me. Really lovely, and most importantly, really funny.
Oh, good. I get off my chest now.
However, it is not my number one.
Alex, I know what your number one is, but go on, tell everybody else.
My number one is Past Lives, and
Mm,
Past Lives is one of the easiest 5 stars I've given a film. And I don't think since watching it I've considered any other film to top this list other than Past Lives. And it's probably because I'm a bit of a cliche and it follows the tradition of some of my other favorite films of all time, like Eternal Sunshine, which is even
mhm.
mentioned in this film, and Before Sunrise, where it takes like this almost anti romantic
Yeah.
look.
You like unrequited love in a way.
Yeah, I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker.
Not unrequited, but like problematic love.
Yeah, I am a sucker for those kind of films. And so, I mean, it's about two people who at one point in time may have been the perfect match, but life got in the
You and me,
way, like you and me.
passing ships, the one that
Passing
got away.
ships. But however, these two people are given this small moment in time to consider what could have been, what might be, maybe what should have been. That's up to you to decide. And then on top of all these kind of romantic considerations and philosophical ideas that kind of being thrown around, it's also this transnational look across an intercontinental relationship or dual
Mhm.
continental relationship. I'm not sure that was the right thing to say. The unruly
Could have been so
technologies
much
of
worse.
the of the what is it? It's like 2012. It's set
Yeah,
right.
we're dealing with like problematic glitchy Skype period going
Yeah,
on here.
which is something which kind of hit home for both of us.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You having a long distance relationship and me having gone from like a relationship into a long distance relationship when I went
Mhm.
to university and having it wasn't that far. We are still in the
Yeah,
same.
but yeah, but yeah. you couldn't necessarily hop in a car and go every night and see the other person. Yeah.
Exactly, and having to deal with the kind of unruly technology that was Skype and how that kind of makes a difference in things, along with the case of kind of cultural differences, despite both being from South Korea. Our main character, played by Greta Lee, who was so good. She has obviously been in America for the majority of her life by the time we meet her in her adult self, and kind of the differences between the two of them there. And like you were saying earlier, like it's a beautiful film. New York's never looked better, I don't think. Um, there's something about it. I don't know what it is. It's just magical the way it's framed.
But
And
not in an artificial way, and in a realistic, rustic way. Yeah.
yeah, I just it is such a beautiful film, and I feel like everybody I've spoken to has loved it. But also, intriguingly, I think everybody's taken something different away from it. Like everybody's loved it, but for different reasons. And I think that is really great because I think not every element is relatable, but you almost take elements and like I was thinking about. I think when we were reviewing it, back on our big review of it, I was talking about my time in Germany when I was a child growing up on like a
Hmm.
military camp and stuff like that, and like those kind of friends that you had there that like every 2 years they would get posted elsewhere, and then I left, and like what do you do with those kind of relationships, and how do they form who you are, and
Yeah.
who's still
You
thinking
choose
about
not
you.
to like open yourself too much, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I don't know, just I came out of the cinema and kind of wept in my car as
Oh, oh
I got
man.
ready
Did you
to,
did you
I
go
was
see this by yourself?
yeah, I did. And
Oh
I
no,
wasn't like full
you need
blown mess,
someone
but I
there.
just like I needed a moment just
Like,
before I turned the keys in the ignition, and thankfully it was dark, so nobody could see me. So I was just like,
oh wow. I
whew.
mean, it is one of those movies. Like me and Lauren the whole way home just talked about it. Um, like in terms of how it related to us, but also what we loved about the film. So, yeah, I think you're so right. There's so many truths that it captures, regardless of like if you're from South Korea or you're from wherever on Earth. You'll
Mm,
find something truthful and relatable in this thing, and I think that's why it's captured so many people. But also that it's just a goddamn gorgeous movie to boot, and it's so worthy as number one on the list. um pro- you make I'm still proud of my number one.
how
it,
can I just say as well? It's a directorial debut,
I know
the
it is
Celine song.
crazy, it is
It's her
crazy.
first feature film. I can't
Yeah.
wait to see what she does next.
The only trailer I've ever seen, like literally the only trailer I've seen from this decade or last decade that like moved me. Like I
Mm.
knew I was like, and it completely delivered on that promise. So yeah. Oh, I hope it does really well in the awards category. I think it's a movie that kind of had a lot of legs, though. I think the word of mouth did really well on this movie. And I think as well, like similar to Anatomy of a Fall, if you're not someone who usually watches foreign language, this is also, like I said, this is like a bilingual film, and it's kind of, I think it's mostly 60% English. So again, another entry point for people. I think anyone can relate to the story at least in some level, even if you're not in a relationship, you'll find something enduring to latch on to. The score is cool in this movie too. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
really like,
so beautiful.
obviously we love Sharon Van Etten over here in this podcast, and she has a single for this movie too. But the score as well is incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great
I mean,
writing music. If you need music to write to, it's really good writing music.
oh, you've dabbled.
I've dabbled.
That's cool. Yeah, there's literally nothing wrong with this film. It doesn't have a fault. I believe anyway.
It's the most perfect film of the year.
Man, this is why it's nice to talk about these lists. It kind of conjures up feelings that I kind of filed away last
Yeah,
year, so it's quite nice.
and it's all positivity and love, which is what we like. All positivity and love.
Coming up next week,
Recap
top 10
your.
shit films of 2023.
No, we don't do that over here. We don't do that. Films are hard to make. I know we shit on some of them, but they are hard to make, and we respect it. We don't make bad film lists most of the time.
Number one, Super Mario Bros.
Stop.
Uh,
Chris, for the listeners, just recap your top 10 for us, will you?
okay, so my top 10 starts with Theater Camp. My number 9 is Beau is Afraid. Number 8, Godzilla -1. Number 7, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. There's two colons in there, but I just skipped over those. Number 6, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Number 5, Anatomy of a Fall. 4, Killers of the Flower Moon. 3, The Boy and the Heron. Number 2, Past Lives. And number 1, Dungeons and Dragons.
Nice, nice. And my number 10 was also Theatre Camp. My number 9, Bottoms. Number 8, Godzilla Minus One. Number 7, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Number 6, Anatomy of a Fall. Number 5, Talk to Me. Number 4, Oppenheimer. Number 3, Killers of the Flower Moon, not Flowers of the Killer Moon, as I get it wrong many a time. My number 2 was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Well done.
Thank you. And my number 1 was Past Lives. Chris, I didn't tell you this was coming, but I want
Oh,
you to give me. I'm gonna ask you 5 questions, and you got to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
okay, this is off guard.
Yep, I'm doing it, man. But I think we'll get. I'm intrigued. All right.
Right, okay.
Best actor of the year.
Um, why is I'm struggling to come up with it on the fly? Um, best
Or just actor of the year. Actor of the year.
actor of the year in any film. I think Sandra Huller.
Okay, that's ruined my next one because it was actress of the year. Maybe I
It's
should.
blurred, those lines are blurred nowadays, aren't they?
They are blurred, aren't
Okay,
they?
so actress, I'm gonna go Sandra Huller.
Sure, we can make
Um,
it 4 questions and we can call it performance of the year.
okay, yeah,
Performance of the year.
that's performance of the year. I fucked this up already. I'm so sorry.
No, you're
Right,
good. No, this is
next
my
one.
fault.
Okay, next.
Okay, so that was Sandra Hüller. See, I was thinking, even though I had more time to think, I think my actor or person performance of the year would maybe go to Jacob Elordi.
Oh,
For both Priscilla and Saltburn, despite those films
okay.
not coming into my top 10, he really impressed me in both of those films. Specifically, Saltburn, I think I've developed a slight crush on him,
Okay, I
which I
think
didn't have in Euphoria.
there's a bit of
Uh,
favoritism going on there.
However, he was a psychopath in Euphoria, so that's maybe why I didn't see the hotness. But damn, he's hot in Saltburn.
Okay,
Uh,
well, I'm gonna like say actor. So I had Sandra Huller for actress. I'm gonna go for Luigi from the Super Mario Bros. Movie for actor. Okay,
okay.
that's my lock in.
All right. So, I mean, if I was going actress, I think maybe I'd go down Sandra Hüller route. I thought it was a great performance, or Lily Gladstone, just in terms of kind of really impressing me as a performer of the year.
I think Portman's up there too, but I'll leave that out.
Oh yeah, true, true. Best score of the year.
Best score of the year. I think first thing that kind of comes to my mind, I am going to actually go for recency bias here and say The Boy and the Heron. Joe Hisashi is a longtime collaborator with Miyazaki in all of his films, and the score has a lot of momentum, and it made me cry.
Nice. I think I already mentioned mine, which was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Yep.
Best TV show of the year.
Well, you're talking to the guy who doesn't watch TV.
Yeah, but what was
Watches
your favorite?
exclusively movies. What did I watch? Probably Avatar: The Last Airbender again, circa 2007. No, I mean like you all your recommends for me, like The Bear and everything. I haven't watched this year, man. I'm so behind on television.
Oh man, I mean, I would maybe go for the Bear. Have you not watched anything else this year? Like,
I
no.
maybe have, but like I can't. Like, what else? What were the big shows that came out last year? Like, first things that come into your mind.
Succession, Beef.
I watched a little bit of Succession, but
I
I
need
need
to
to like
watch more Succession. I'm
oh, Beef
just.
with Stephen Yeun. I haven't watched that either, and that's getting that got loads of attention.
Did the boys come out this year?
Okay, I'll put the boys on there then.
I really like the boys. Secret Invasion,
Oh yeah, that's up there.
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. No, I just finished Mando season 3, so I've got to watch Ahsoka.
Um, White Lotus. Oh man, actually no. White Lotus season 2 for me is show of the year. The Last of Us came out, though I don't think you actually
Okay,
GMV.
I
Anyway,
watched Last of Us. Like, it's good. It's really good. I think that like that last episode, but like, yeah, it's yeah. I don't have I don't have a PlayStation, so I haven't played the game, and I'm so jealous of everybody who has. So
Oh yeah, of
yeah,
course.
this is my New Year's resolution is I gotta watch more TV.
Fair enough. You don't have to, but yeah. No, I think if I was to recommend anything to anyone, it'd be
The
White
Bear
Lotus, or
or
The
White
Bear,
Lotus.
or The
Okay.
Bear. Oh, I do love both of them. It was yeah, it was good. I don't watch enough TV either, to be fair, but those two really do stand out for
Well,
me.
you can't. I mean, like this is the thing when you've got
I
so
know
many
we were trying to
multiple
watch
media
films.
interests. There's too much stuff in the. Like,
It's
I'm
the
starting to.
film angle.
I
It's
know,
not the
and I'm playing a lot of
TV
video games
angle.
at the minute too, and that is so time consuming. I'm like, oh, it's just like I wish I didn't. Somebody was my sugar daddy or sugar mama, and like literally just like, I could be chained to the corner all day if you want. Just give me time to play some video games and watch movies. I'll do anything for money.
All right, final question. First thing that comes to your mind. All right,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
intrigued to hear this one for you. Most anticipated film of 2024.
Okay. So first thing that kind of comes into my mind is Dune Part Two,
Oh yeah.
which is like the conventional answer, right?
Yeah, yeah. But that's
Okay.
good. We like
Okay.
Dune. I
Yeah.
yeah, do you know what? I kind of forgot that one. I was looking up 2024 films and for some reason
No,
bypassed
I'm
Dune.
overtaking that. Can I change my answer, please?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Furiosa.
Oh yes,
I'm
a Mad Max story.
Yes, I am a George Miller fanboy. I love Fury Road is one of the best action movies ever made. Give me more. Yes, please.
Cool. If I was not going Dune Part 2, I think I would go
June.
Challenges from Luca Guadagnino. It was
Oh
supposed to come
yeah.
out this year. Oh, sorry, this year, last year. But it was delayed due to the writer strikes and the actor strikes. So it's coming out this year now, 2024. Looks great. I love Luca Guadagnino. Zendaya is an amazing actress that's really kind of at the top of her game right now. So really excited to see her in a different film that we haven't seen before from her.
Mhm.
So yeah, really, really looking forward to that one. But it did make me think that I'm not that excited for the films of 2024 yet.
I'm looking at the list here now. I mean, like Maxine, I'm really excited for.
Yep,
Like,
looking
I'm
forward to
excited for.
Maxine. But is there anything on here like
There's a lot of sequels, isn't there?
we were frothing
Yeah.
over
Last year
like
was a
new
good year. I
Martin
mean,
Scorsese. I'm trying. I mean, there's always films that
like
kind
auteur
of
films.
yeah that come out and surprise you that you weren't always aware were being made.
I
So
think
like
that's indie in general, isn't it? It's kind of like it creeps up on
mm,
you like 2 weeks before release, and then suddenly you've got like a movie of the year contender on your hands. Um, yeah, I
but
mean like
yeah,
Argyle. I mean that trailer makes me like want to be sick in my mouth every time I watch that in the cinema.
God, it's
I mean,
violent reactions.
um, I see. Second most anticipated for Alex on your letterbox account is Wicked Part One. Yeah, that's out this year. Um, I mean, you got Cohen brother, like Ethan Cohen's doing Drive Away Dolls, but like the jury's still out on that one. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Nosferatu maybe from Robert Eggers.
yeah, that's worth noting. Mickey 17 from Bong Joon
Bong
Ho.
Joon Ho. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I mean, there's definitely things. I don't know. I'd look at this slate and I look at last year and I'm like, I'm not sure I like the look of many films this year.
there's like a lot. I mean, we got a new Kingdom of the Planet Apes of the Planet of the
Yeah.
Apes. We like. You're a big fan of War of the Planet of the Apes.
I love War of the Planet. Yeah, but it was like it concluded. So, I
Mm,
mean, do I need more? I don't know. We'll find out, I
mm.
guess.
Madam Web doesn't look great.
Shut
Um,
your mouth.
oh my God. A trailer that you can fall asleep to.
Oh man, two more films in the Sony Spider-Man multiverse, whatever it is. Craven the Hunter and Madam Web. Um, I don't know. I don't think I'll see Craven in the cinema, but I might be intrigued by Madam Web. Oh, I don't even want to say that. It feels icky saying that. Nah, I probably won't see that in the cinema either. They're all shit.
It's so true. There's no surprise going to be had there. It's not gonna. It's not gonna. Yeah, I'll eat my hat if they turn out to be masterpieces.
Yeah,
But
fair enough.
I like to be proven. Like, I mean, I like to. I don't want to. Like, I want to enjoy everything I watch. Like, wouldn't that be amazing if we could go to cinema and everything was incredible? Like,
Yes.
I go in with that mindset every time. Even
Yeah, I
when I
mean,
go to see
I
Aquaman
never
2.
want a film to be bad. Oh, and there's a new Lord of the Rings film apparently.
Is it based on the TV show The Rings of Power, or is this like?
No, but it's animated apparently.
Oh, that could be interesting.
Hmm.
I need to read more
Um,
into that.
but yeah, so I mean, you'll hear our thoughts on the films of 2024 as we release more episodes this year, which I can't wait to do. Feels like it's been a minute since we podcasted from our Christmas break. What a great way to get back into things with a year in review. And if you know anybody who loves films, then this is probably a good starting place for the podcast for any new listeners. So recommend this episode, I would say.
Oh, that's very sweet, Alex.
You gotta get the you gotta get the sharing in. But yeah, we have lots of exciting stuff planned for the year. Some potential collaborations, some potential new series, like we
Mhm.
already kind of teased a potential Ghibli series, and there may be more to come. And we are, I think, 35 films away from
But
finishing our BFI Blind Spot series, and
put
you
it
know.
this way, we will definitely have it done this year. I think, right?
I hope so.
I hope
uh,
so.
and we will be back. We will be back next week with our first of the year of the BFI Blind Spots, where we will watch and review Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, as well as our new release ish for that episode. We're gonna be watching The Hunger Games: A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes,
We've
and doing
rewatched all the original Hunger Games
yeah.
quadrilogy.
We'll do a little retrospective on the Hunger Games as a whole as well. So that'll be the next episode. So please do join us for that. But no, thank you everybody who listened in 2023, and if you're going to continue to listen in 2024, then we love you. But yeah, that's been the film angle.
Awesome.
Wicked. I'm Alex.
And I'm Chris.
Goodbye and good night, everyone, and happy New Year.
See you later. Bye.